Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall Valenzuela Adam Ronis with you for the next couple hours, but you already knew that. Hopefully you're having a great start to your Sunday. Adam, how's it going? How you doing? Welcome in.
Going well. Yeah, played some softball this morning and
Okay.
ready to do this show. Got a big NBA Game 7 today. Mets Yankees tonight. It's a great Sunday.
Have your Mets been winning that series or no?
It's 1-1.
I actually haven't paid attention.
1-1.
Okay.
Mets lost Friday night, won Saturday 3-2. So
You a Knicks fan then?
I am not. So I
Okay.
root for the Knicks, but I'm not like a diehard Knicks fan like I am Mets, Cowboys. So obviously, being growing up in the city, I'm rooting for them to win. So yeah, that was definitely exciting and going to be a tough series against Indiana, but I'll be rooting for the Knicks.
It looked great. Like all the videos I saw, I was like, New York, if they go any farther, like the whole thing's going to burn to the ground, which is great because everyone's having a great time. But yeah, I think they're favored in their first game. So it should be.
Yeah, they're favored in the series.
Okay.
It opened up around -140 to -150, depending on the book. But yeah, that will start on Wednesday night. And you are right. I mean, that was only the conference semifinals. And
the
fans
videos were crazy.
really. So yeah, it could get insane here. But first, they have to get past Indiana. And it should be fun. But it's good for New York. It's good for Knicks fans. First time since 2000 that they are in the conference finals.
Wow, that's a long time. That's fun. And you had softball today, so like it's a whole win. Like your Sundays are great. And we
Yeah,
get to
you
hang
always
out
make
together?
fun of
What the
me.
heck?
You always make
What?
fun of me
When?
for not waking up early, but Sundays, get up early. It's long days on Sundays. I do get tired on Sundays, like around.
Take a nap?
No, I can't. There's too much. So, like I said, after this, you got NBA. I got to do all my fantasy baseball waiver wires for, is it 6 or 7 leagues tonight? They all run. So I have to get up to date on the injuries and do that. And I do get a little tired around midnight, 12:30. So there's a chance I go to sleep around 1 a.m. There's a chance.
Dude, if you get to, like naturally, because your body's like shutting down and it's saying, hey, it's midnight, it's 12:30 a.m. Maybe we should call it a day. But you get up early for the things that you love, and that's softball. So I never hear you
work.
complain. And work, yeah.
Yeah, we were doing the Sunday show at 7 a.m. during football season.
That's true. All right, I have to give you that one.
Yeah.
You win today then? No.
Split.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Watch the tape and get better.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you do. Excited to have everyone here with us, though. We've got a great show planned out for you. Got some quarterback rankings updates. We're going to go through some more of Dwayne McFarland's projections for the wide receivers. And lucky for us, Adam, not only do we get to talk about the schedule release today, but we also had some news coming into the show, which, mid-May, we don't usually get to have. So let's start with Brock Purdy, 49ers. They agreed to a 5-year, $265 million deal. So I believe this was Friday afternoon, includes $181 million in overall guaranteed money per Adam Schefter. Listen, Adam, we knew this was coming. Huge pay raise for Brock Purdy and what he's been able to do and where he's been able to lead them. Over the first 3 NFL seasons for him, he earned $2.6 million total over those first 3 seasons. So I don't think this contract too, when people are like, oh, this is too much money. But when you look at the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis now, he's around Tua Tagovailoa, he's around Jared Goff, and just a couple million off from Trevor Lawrence. So I didn't see this deal and think, oh my gosh, he's right up there with Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. But, we knew this was going to come.
Yeah, quarterbacks just make an insane amount of money. So you'll see most of these quarterback contracts, people are like, none of them deserve it. It's just the nature of the game now, where these quarterbacks are going to get paid. And, Purdy has basically come from nowhere. Final pick of the 2022 draft. Relevant. Yeah, and keeps, putting up numbers. Last year was a tough situation. They just had a lot of injuries. And I think that was the one thing you wanted to see from Purdy, because a lot of people said, well, he's a product of all these weapons around him. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. They have so many weapons, the Kyle Shanahan offense. And a lot of those injuries hurt the offense last year. And, he still was solid at times. It wasn't as good as 2 years ago, but there were some games where I was like, this is pretty impressive considering all the guys that are out and injured. So they'll have most of the team back and healthy and good to go. We'll see when Brandon Ayuk can return. But Christian McCaffrey looks like he'll be fine and back. They extended Kittle. So, Purdy's not someone I think that you're targeting in fantasy football drafts. But if you miss out on the top quarterbacks, maybe you take him and back him up with someone else.
I don't know. He's QB 10 in our rankings consensus.
Is he QB 10?
QB 10, but and I put my rankings out, and I had trouble. Like, once we got, and we're going to talk about the quarterback rankings here in a little bit, but he was one where I went back and forth because I'm like, okay, Brock Purdy. For me, Adam, when I looked at him, he's been consistent, right? So if you want consistency at the quarterback position for what he was able to do last year, like you said, with all of the injuries, I was like, okay, this is good. And Brock Purdy, he's been giving us QB9, QB7, and then last season a QB10 finish in fantasy points per game over those past 3 seasons. Like you said, Brandon Ayuk was done last year, Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall, Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, like all of those guys at some point in the season in 2024 were out. And so for him to continue to work pretty well in fantasy points per game at QB10 last year, it made it tough for me when looking at just projections and where overall he could finish. It made it pretty hard to not keep him close to the top 10, top 12. So consensus he's QB10 in our rankings, and Ian Hartitz is all in on Brock Purdy. He's the one that has him the highest. He has him at QB8, and then QB13 for Dwayne and Friedman. So I'm kind of right in the middle of both of those guys. But when I look at these players, Adam, sometimes I look and I'm like, I don't want to rank him behind, Caleb Williams right now. Like, maybe in a couple months when we're talking and we look at training camp and it looks really good, maybe there's something there. But it's the same with Justin Fields, and it's the same with Jared Goff for me.
Yeah, I think those quarterbacks are in that pocket where some people, and you just illustrated it, some people are higher than on Purdy, some people are higher on Caleb Williams. So that's, to me, if you miss out on the elite quarterbacks. Now, you mentioned that QB9, like QB8, that's not really what I want. Now, you can't get top 5 at every position, but I really want a top 5 quarterback if I can get it. Now, last year, Jaden Daniels was going in that range where we knew we had the ceiling to be top 5.
Yeah.
I don't think Purdy can be top 5. But again, it all comes down to where you're drafting and what happens in the draft. If you're in round 9, round 10, you go, all right, well, I'm loaded at other positions. I missed out on the elite quarterbacks. I'll take Purdy and hope that he gives me, QB8, QB9, hopefully some big spike weeks. So the issue too with Purdy is when they have that running game going, there could be games where you're getting 200 yards and 1 passing touchdown. So, and the other aspect is, it's been talked about, this 49ers have one of the easiest schedules, if not the easiest, I believe, in the NFL this year. So they also had a lot of bad injury luck last year. And because they did finish last place, right? In the NFC
Yeah, they're playing a last place schedule this year. Yeah.
So that could also be beneficial for them as well. But we did see down the stretch, Purdy had 300-yard games in 3 of his last 4. The other thing, too, he's so efficient, because he doesn't need high pass volume to put up numbers. Like 2 years ago, when he had 31 touchdown passes, he had 444 pass attempts, which is crazy. Now, you also would say, well, that's not going to continue. And last year he had more pass attempts, 455, only 20 touchdowns. But the injuries were a big factor, and not having McCaffrey there. They had a solid running game. It's not like Jordan Mason wasn't good, but he wasn't catching passes out of the backfield like McCaffrey was. So having everyone healthy should help Purdy. But yeah, I mean, that's the right range. But I don't think he has the ability to finish as a top 5 quarterback.
No. And I think that when you're drafting Brock Purdy, though. That's why I say if you more want consistency and you miss out on those top guys, like if you're looking at the rankings and you say, I can't get Kyler Murray, I can't get Baker Mayfield in this range, Bo Nix, and then like I said, Caleb Williams, we've got months until the season starts, so I can see myself changing things around, and that's what we always do at fantasylife.com. But like once you miss out on those guys and you're getting Brock Purdy, like right now he's going on underdog around the 9th or 10th round, like you kind of know what you're getting. But the consistency there is something that you can't be, you're still pretty happy with it. You don't get the rushing upside, but you've got a high-powered offense now playing the easiest strength of schedule for 2025. So that's the other way you look at it, and you say, all right, well, this is going to be fine. Like I said, QB10 was his worst finish so far, and he's got a QB9, QB7 finish. So you're really drafting him where he usually ends up. And I think the only other thing, Adam, that I think people will get a few questions on is just we have to wait and see Brandon Ayuk's return. We have to see when that's going to happen. You know, if it's week 1, we get the news during training camp, we see him out there, it's all good. Because then, you know, you're going forward with Ricky Pearsall, which is not bad, and Jawan Jennings, but definitely having Brandon Ayuk back with Deebo Samuel gone now, I think that's going to be the thing that I watch the most for. But the easy schedule makes it kind of nice for them because, like I said, they're playing a last place schedule, so it at least gives them the opportunity to continue being contenders for that NFC.
Yeah, look, Purdy, since he's taken over as quarterback for the 49ers, he's third in the NFL in passing yards, first in yards per pass attempt. So he's been good. And like I said, to me, watching him last year with all those injuries, the offensive line too, you know, Trent Williams was out. I thought he showed pretty well considering all the things that crumbled around him. Because everyone was saying, oh, well, he's just a product of the offense, and look at all those weapons. Anyone could do that. But I thought we saw some good signs out of him last year. But, yeah, I mean, he's in that range where I don't think you don't want him as your QB1. You're basically, well, I missed out on the top guys. I'm fine with him as my starting quarterback. But I don't think you're targeting him. Or maybe
no,
you are.
you're not.
Maybe are you? I don't think he's a target for me.
You know who we target. We target the guys with rushing upside. So those dual threat quarterbacks. So it's
the problem is you got to pay for
exactly.
You got to pay for those.
You and I have talked about that. Like we know that we're not changing our draft philosophy when it comes to running backs, but this season more and more in these underdog drafts, I've been like, all right, I want to make sure I get a Jaden Daniels. I want to make sure I have a piece of Lamar Jackson. So I'm not. You know, it's been fun because Jaden Daniels for us last season, that was one where we were waiting at him. We just said, oh, Jaden Daniels is going way too late. We know the rushing upside. We know he's going to pay off that ADP. And this year, you know, someone's going to come out like that, and it's going to be someone, you know, that we talk about and we say, okay, well, there's options here, right? There's an opportunity for Justin Fields if you wait to give us, you know, that kind of huge season where he's got the rushing upside. He does way better with the Jets. But I found myself more just especially in these early drafts, just because, you know, they're tried and true, but just making sure I'm getting, you know, Baker Mayfield's, Patrick Mahomes, I think I got in one draft, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. Like, yeah, if you get a Brock Purdy, it's because you waited. And I don't think that's a bad strategy either, but you know what you're not getting, and that's the rushing.
Yeah, look, there's going to be certain drafts where maybe you are willing to pay up for a quarterback. Once you miss out, then that's the range where you're going for your QB1, and then you're hoping for a solid backup. Look, the goal always is to find the value at quarterback that you don't have to pay top 6, top 7 rounds for. I mean, last year, Jaden Daniels was one of them, and Baker Mayfield was the other. Now, in redraft leagues, he was sometimes picked up off the waiver wire after week 1, week 2, or taken in the final rounds. I mean, Sam Darnold was another guy who was a bargain. So, you know, after the season or middle of the season, it's easy to see. The key is identifying that before the year. So
exactly.
You wind up in a really good spot. So, you know, we have time to kind of figure that out. See who the potential candidates are to be that guy. So the crazy part is you brought up Caleb Williams, right? You would think that coming off the year he had last year, that he would be cheaper, and he's not at all. It's because of the coaching change. So it would be so much easier to take him if we were talking about him QB 12, 13, 14, 15, which you would think after the season he had last year, that's where he goes. But everyone is so optimistic with all the moves that the Bears made, upgrading the offensive line, the draft with Loveland, the coaching staff.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much optimism. I still think there'll be people that are going to fade Caleb Williams and say the price is too high, but that would have been the quarterback that we identified that could be cheap, but he's not cheap at all.
I wrote about him as someone that could have a C.J. Stroud-like season, but a little bit different because C.J. Stroud in his rookie season was phenomenal. And, you know, no offense to Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, though, for everything, all the crap that gets thrown his way, he did perform relatively well for all the changes that had to go on there. Obviously, we're going to talk about this in the water cooler, but, I mean, the coaching was horrible. Like, it wasn't good inside and out. There was no one helping him in the film room, whatever it is. So, but to me, I look at that, Adam, and I'm like, wow, he's going QB8 off the board on underdog. Like, that's one where, you know, those guys are sharp. Everyone who drafts there is sharp, and they kind of allow themselves to wait a little bit to get their quarterback. But QB8, and it does make me, and again, it's only May. Everything could change here in the next couple months, but it does make me just a little bit nervous about where he's going, because QB8, that's expensive.
Oh, you have to be a little nervous, even if you're very optimistic, because there are scenarios where this doesn't go right, because even when he had a clean pocket last year, it's not like he put up great stats. So we're really banking on the coaching being a big difference, which it can be. I mean, we did see last year when they changed offensive coordinators. I don't remember if was it week 11, because I'm looking here in that week 12 game against Minnesota, he had 340 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a stretch where he had multiple touchdown passes in 4 of 5 games. I believe week 12 might have been the first week where they made the change in offensive coordinator, and you did see some differences. Of course, the pass attempts were pretty high.
Because it was November 12th when Waldron was fired. I don't have that like in my notes, like what week that was.
I'm assuming it was after week 11, because week 12 against Minnesota, he came out at 340 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. So he went a stretch of 3 straight games without throwing a passing touchdown. And that's hard to do in the NFL, unless you're like the worst quarterback. For real. Like, even the worst quarterback will throw 1 touchdown pass in a 3-game span.
It's like Geno Smith in the red zone. It's really tough out there, Adam. You can't buy a touchdown. But I don't know, for Chicago, and like I said, QB8, like I understand it too, because you are so excited about an offensive-minded head coach coming in like Ben Johnson, and you're saying the trickle-down effect to that, and for getting Loveland, Luther Burden, Roma Dunze should be better. DJ Moore is still there, DeAndre Swift. Like they have all these factors around him that make Caleb, when we look at Caleb Williams, make us believe that he should be great in 2025. And honestly, Adam, he should be, because if we thought that he had everything that he needed to succeed in 2024, this now is 10 times better than what he had. So, they're trying to get better with the sacks, right? League leading 68 sacks last season, 3rd most in NFL history. So I'm on board. I'm wearing a Caleb Williams shirt today. Shout out to Homage for sending us these shirts. But yeah, QB8, I might like, it's expensive, and anything can change in the next couple months, but he will burn a lot of people if it really doesn't work out.
Oh, for sure. Like, he better come through. And like I've been saying, like there's no excuses now. Last year we could see the setup around him was not great, and some of it was on him, but he was not being aided by the coaching staff and the play calling. That's going to change this year, and they did everything they could to make things and the environment around Caleb Williams great. So it all falls on his shoulders right now. And obviously, early drafts, they're optimistic. They think that Caleb Williams is going to come through. So, I had him in a league or 2 last year, but didn't have to pay this price. So got to figure out if it's going to be something that's part of the plan this year.
Yeah, we'll see. And we're pretty split at Fantasy Life as well. You guys can go and check out all of those rankings at fantasylife.com. But Dwayne is the highest on him at QB9, and then it's QB15 for Waz, and then it's 11 and 12. So it's really, there's a range. Again, we've got a few months to figure this out. We've got training camp, coming up in July, where we're going to be able to see, like, okay, how's this going to look? Maybe get a little bit of a preview, but that's going to be one that's going to be fun to watch. But like the people that buy in, or it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking there for the first couple weeks. I want to talk Derrick Henry's extension as well, because Brock Purdy was not the only one that got paid over the weekend. And then we're going to go through some fantasy regression candidates. Got some big names. We got to talk about Baker Mayfield and if he's going to pay off his price as well. We're going to do that coming up next. Kendall Valenzuela Adam Ronis with you on this Sunday. As always, love you guys hanging out with us here today, getting you ready. It's never too early, Adam, to get ready for the 2025 fantasy football season. I was at a housewarming party for a friend yesterday, talking to someone, that was like, hey, I love fantasy football. I was like, perfect. You getting ready? He was like, yeah, I'm getting ready. It's never too early. I said, yeah, it's never too early. So shout out. It was great.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of people will be like, oh, it's the middle of May, but the drafts will get here before you know it. Of course, a lot of people do best ball drafts, doing them now, and now it's going to pick up too, because the schedule came out. Now the bye week, because that was one of the issues early on. Maybe you already did a draft for only 2 quarterbacks. They have the same bye week. Now we got everything mapped out. You could look at the playoff schedule, so that's only going to intensify the best ball drafts. But even if you are thinking redraft, you still should be putting in the work now, at least to get started, kind of get a blueprint of what you want to do. Things can change. Obviously, there'll be injuries and things happen during training camp. There's still some free agents out there as well, but the sooner you get started on anything, like the more prepared you are, the better. This way you start doing it
Absolutely.
now. Once you start, doing some drafts in July, you'll be ahead of everyone else. They'll be scrambling, trying to figure things out. You'll be ahead of the curve. You'll know where guys are going. You know ADPs. You'll know the values. And, that's the one thing, too, when you draft early. I mean, it's every sport. You go look. I mean, for baseball, it's insane. You look at players that were drafted at one point around 18, and then by the big money drafts, they're in round 12 or round 10.
Yep.
So same thing in football. There are definitely some players going late now that are going to move up, especially we know all it takes is one big play, and it shouldn't be this way, but training camp, like guy running deep gets open catch. Oh my God, look at that. Yeah, we got to move him up. And a lot of times it doesn't mean much, but it's going to be reflected in the price. So yeah, it's always good to do drafts scattered throughout. And, especially if you see some values now, get that player at a bargain. And maybe by the time real drafts come around, you're priced out because they go too high. So you want to get some shares now.
It's my favorite time of year. Best shape of their life is my favorite tweet of all time in July. And then I'm just like, let's see, are they in the best shape of their life? But I will say, because we're going to talk a little bit about the schedule during the Fantasy Life water cooler. If you're doing best ball drafts though, and you want a little bit of a cheat sheet, because you know that week 17 is so important when you're drafting, and you want to kind of correlate week 17 games, get those matchups right, kind of get guys on either side, to just make sure that you have the right correlation for those weeks. Go over to fantasylife.com, because Pete Overzet did a great ranking of every week 17 game for best ball. So he kind of goes through the games that you want to target, maybe the games that you want to fade, or I should say the players that you want to fade for that week. So again, fantasylife.com is where you can go and check that out. One other thing that I wrote about over the weekend, Adam, we can just hit this really quick, but Derrick Henry got an extension as well. So Brock Purdy got paid, Derrick Henry gets paid, reached a 2-year, $30 million extension with the Ravens. I believe that was on Wednesday. So 31 years old, keeps him from being a free agent, because that was kind of what was coming up in the next year. And then the largest deal in NFL history for a running back over 30. And I said this, Adam, in the article, but you know what? Derrick Henry seems like the guy that no matter what, until he decides to retire, he almost seems like the kind of running back and the kind of player that's just going to continue performing at a high level until he decides to call it quits. So it's never going to be me trying to predict when Derrick Henry's fall off is going to happen, because in my mind, it just seems like with him, it's never going to happen. And I know that's a little bit dramatic, and he probably will have a fall off at some point, but Adam, I'm not going to be the one to try and predict it. So I'm going to continue, drafting him. If you're going, with one of the anchor running back kind of ways that you want to draft this season, and you say, hey, I want to get an anchor RB, which is you take one of the big guys in the first, 2, maybe 3 rounds, and then you just go wide receiver heavy, get your tight end, get your quarterback. Derrick Henry is still in that range. He's going right at the beginning of the second round, going after now, though, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, with Henry, he's shown no signs of slowing down, and it's very unique for a running back who is 31 years old. But he's 6'2", 250. We talked about it last year. He really takes care of his body. Like, there was a whole article on everything he does and what he eats. We knew going to Baltimore was like the perfect marriage, because I think there were some people that were looking at the final numbers in Tennessee and like, well, he's older, he's on the downside. I know you and I both liked him a lot last year. I didn't get him in as many leagues as I wanted, but no one could have envisioned it that good. Although we did say there's a chance in this Ravens offense he could get 20 touchdowns, and he had 18 total, 16 rushing, 2 receiving. He played the entire season, 5.9 yards per carry, the best of his career. The second most rushing yards in his career, 1,921. We know he's not going to catch a lot of passes. I think he has that skill set, but we're seeing Baltimore even less. I mean, they don't really throw to their running backs a lot anyway with Lamar Jackson. But he had 19 receptions for 193 and 2 receiving touchdowns. But, any of the metrics that you look at, they were great. I mean, there were no sign. I mean, the yards after contact, the speed on some of these long runs. We know no one defies age. It's a question of when. Does he have another big season in him? I think most people would say yes, but we're just not used to seeing this. Now, the other factor for him, I guess, part of it was he wasn't really utilized heavily early in his career, so that might have preserved him a little bit, because he didn't get his first 300-yard carry season until 2019. So, but he is coming off a big workload, the postseason. But I guess if there's anyone that can defy that you would bet on, it would be Henry. Great offense, good run game. You got Lamar Jackson there to take some attention away. So, yeah, I mean, one of these years he will decline, but it's hard to say that it's going to be this year.
Yeah, it's when he retires. That's when he'll decline.
He's going to go out he's going to retire on a
2 years,
1,800-yard season with 15 touchdowns.
Listen, 2-year extension. They kind of said in that press release that they want him to finish as a Raven. I can't imagine that he doesn't. I can't imagine that he doesn't finish as a Raven.
Like, if he wins the Super Bowl this year, do you just retire?
Man, well, I guess that's a Travis Kelce question, isn't it?
I guess it depends on what type of year you have, and if he feels good, he'd be like, "I'll do one more and get my payday."
I was gonna say, I don't think he does, but you're right. I mean, the only question is the durability and the mileage that he has from last season. 386 touches, career best 5.9 yards per carry. Like that's the only thing.
So the 386, I think, was the second most in his career, right? Because 2020 he had 378 carries, 19 receptions. So. Yeah, it's amazing what he's done. I mean, 17 games in each of the last 2 years. He hasn't. The only year he really missed significant time was 2021.
Yep. And listen, it's baked into the price already. He's RB 5 in our consensus rankings. And like I said, a little bit different if you go on Underdog and kind of try and check out where he is, because I believe he's going, the last time I looked, which was just a couple days ago, he was going after Christian McCaffrey. So that's kind of like once we get there, it's kind of like, I don't know. People can mix and match there. I can see an argument either way, but Christian McCaffrey's now sneaking into the first round like we expected him to. And then Derrick Henry's literally just one pick after him. So RB6 there, RB5 in our consensus rankings.
Yeah, and I think that it does price in, okay, well, what if he takes a little bit of a step back? But when you look at the running backs in those range, I guess it's tough to have them much lower.
No, you can't. Because then it's Ashton Genty.
Right.
It's Ashton Genty, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan is the RB2, and Saquon is going first off the board for running backs. 101, between him and Jamar Chase. But it feels like, because you don't want to put Derrick Henry, you wouldn't, are you putting him after Achane? I guess that's the only one that's even close where people could say, I want Achane, he's younger, he's proven, that he's going to have this big workload. I think that's the only one, because then we get into Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving range, and I don't think we're going to drop him that far.
Yeah, with Achane, it's the reception. So in a full point PPR, maybe you can boost him there, especially if they continue to utilize him. They even split him out wide. Again, he kind of reminds me of Alvin Kamara when Kamara first came up, because Kamara never had massive workloads on the ground. He was always around 200, 210 carries, and that's what we saw from Achane last year, where he had 203, but he had the 78 receptions, and there was a stretch where Kamara had 3 straight years, I believe, of 81 receptions. And Achane had 12 total touchdowns last year. But I think the Miami offense, though, is a concern. The offensive line, and they seem like a team that it could spiral out of control pretty badly for them.
Yeah, I was listening. I can't remember which it might have been Mina Kimes' podcast, but just talking through, the best, the optimistic sides of 2025 for some teams and the pessimistic. And with the Dolphins, it was like, yeah, this Super Bowl window, because they did, for their credit, they did go all in. They just they weren't able to win it. And now, a couple years later, it's like, ooh, that window might be close to closed, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dolphins fans.
Yeah, I don't feel good about that team.
What about the offense, though? Because if you don't feel good about the team, then you don't feel good about them necessarily for fantasy football either.
No, I mean, there's a couple guys that I think you can
Achane and Tyreek Hill or Geno Smith.
Yeah, I mean, can Geno Smith repeat that? That's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's why you hear I'm just straining my voice. I'm just like, yeah, that's been another one that's been really difficult in doing these rankings, trying to figure out where to put them.
Well, because tight end is terrible.
Yeah, tight end is terrible, but then Tyreek Hill more specifically, because you look around though and you say, okay, Adam, it's still Tyreek Hill. I don't feel like all of his best years are behind him necessarily, and he's still got a lot. I feel like he still has good years left. But then you look at the overall offense and you say, okay, Tua Tagovailoa unfortunately has gone down with all the injuries and the concussions, and what is this offense going to look like? But right now he's like wide receiver 13. And the highest we have him is a wide receiver 12. Like, it's not like someone's saying, oh, he's the 8th best receiver right now for fantasy football. So it's baked into the price.
It is. I mean, because he was what, second, third receiver off the board last year.
Yeah.
Huge drop off. I mean, the volume dropped off, the receptions, the big plays, the touchdowns. So I know he had the thumb issue and the offense wasn't great, but I think he's different. He's 31, relying on speed. He's not this big receiver. So the 11.8 yards per reception. The other factor was, like, there were games he wasn't even getting the football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, non-existent.
I mean, there was a lot of weeks you were probably like, can I bench Tyreek Hill? You didn't want to, obviously, because you spent such a high pick, but there was a lot of bad games. He had 3 100-yard games last year. One came in week 1.
That's why he was disappointed, and he said what he said after, in that postseason press conference where he's like, I gotta get out of here. He's like, I can't do this.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of rumors about him being traded, and it didn't happen.
Still could, right?
Yeah, I guess it's possible.
I mean, we've got, I haven't looked into this yet because we're not close. I might do it for the show next week, but June 1st is a big date where we see, key cut candidates just for cap casualties is usually what we talk about there. So yeah, I'd have to look at some of those guys, but Tyreek Hill for everything last season. It was the same with Jalen Waddle though. You know how many shares of Jalen Waddle I had. I was so excited. That was one that I did bench and I did not care at him. I felt a weight lifted off my chest, just like when we do it when we stop drafting, like Kyle Pitts, it's just like, I feel so good about myself. But yeah, Tyreek Hill was brutal last season. We'll see if the offense gets better.
I'm trying to remember. I think I might have only had Tyreek in one league, if I remember correctly. So, well, I mean, you had to have an early pick. You had to have like a 2, 3.
Yeah, I was going to say at least the top 5.
Sometimes people get upset when they don't have that top pick, and other times you catch a break when that, like, if you were intent on taking McCaffrey at 1 last year and you didn't get the 1. You caught a break. It does happen. And Tyreek was one of those guys going in the top 5 where if you didn't have that pick or somehow you went in a different direction, you benefited from it.
I would love to have more middle of the round 1 picks this year.
For this year?
I know you and I were very much similar where I always got put in that 10, 11, 12 spot, which was fine, but it was really tough to make a difference. We always talk about how we do so many drafts. So sometimes I do want to sprinkle on some guys. Like maybe when you look at it, you'll say, oh my gosh, when I was taking Marvin Harrison Jr. and it's like, no, I kind of want some of him there at this 10, 11, 12 because you just want to make it a little bit different. But I would like a couple of the middle of round 1 picks this year. That's what I'm hoping for. If I get another year of 10, 11, 12 on him, I'm going to freak out.
For me last year was either like top 4 or back end. So like I was higher on Justin Jefferson than his ADP, or because he fell in some drafts, but I wasn't able to get him because I didn't have a pick in the middle. Like if I had like pick 7, pick 8, and he was there, I would have taken him, but I just didn't have the ability to get him. So yeah, this year I kind of haven't figured it out yet where is the best place to pick. It depends, I guess, how you want to build your team. I would like getting like a Bijan Robinson if I can. I like getting that 3 down back early and then just hammer receiver. So, but Bijan is like 2, 3. He goes 2, 3. He goes out of Barkley sometimes.
Yeah, he does. You'll have to get another top 4, probably top 5 pick. If someone wants CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, then you can get him at 5. But
look, I always say it really doesn't matter where you pick. If you know the player pool well, you'll be fine. But
I forgot that Justin Jefferson last year was. Yeah. I forgot about that. People started to fade him with the Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy stuff.
Right, and I was like, really?
He's going like 7, 8 in some of those drafts.
We've seen him do it every year, every quarterback, and with McCarthy there, I was like, no, I'll take him, but didn't have him on any team because just wasn't picking in that area.
Yeah. Tough. It's fine. We're gonna manifest it out, and we're gonna get better picks this year. That's what's gonna happen. Let's see if we can talk through some of these fantasy regression candidates and agree on them. Because Baker Mayfield, I already said, is one. Where is he going to be able to put up the same numbers that he did last season? We're gonna talk about him and a few other players coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans. Sure, NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it. And all this preseason NFL action is way easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So you guys got to go get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Oh, we've got you covered. I've got you covered with the Folgers talk, and fantasylife.com has you covered with about everything else, Adam. So you can, all the projections we're talking about today, all the rankings, you can go and check those out at fantasylife.com. Same with the articles that we mentioned here, which, by the way, the fantasy regressions article is a great one if you guys want to go and check it out, from Dwayne McFarland. Just posted a couple days ago. But, you know, while he's going through his projections, it is interesting, Adam, to look at some of the players and say, all right, these guys are expensive in drafts. Can they continue to perform at a high level? And I think the one big question is with Baker Mayfield. Because on one side, Adam, I believe Baker Mayfield has proven to us it doesn't matter if he has an offensive coordinator change. It doesn't matter if he's without his top two targets and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Like, he still performed last season and the season before this at such a high level. So you look at him, and it makes you excited, right? Average 22.6 points per game, which, by the way, was better than the previous season, 18.3. So it was phenomenal. But then you look at him and you get a little bit deeper. He threw a touchdown on 7.2% of his pass attempts. And that feels like a number when you look at it. That's above his career average. His career average is 5.1%. Previous career high was 5.6. So over that, you take those averages and you say 7.2% is unreal for what he did, especially, like I said, you were without Godwin for most of the season. Mike Evans was in and out because he had his injury as well. So you look at that, you look at his rushing yards per game, his pass yards per attempt, and those are going to be tough numbers to, let's just say, to repeat. And that doesn't mean to me, Adam, that I'm looking at Baker Mayfield and saying he should be outside of the top 10, because that is not what I'm saying. He deserves to be in there. He's top 8 in our rankings, but some of those numbers, like throwing a touchdown on 7.2% of his attempts, is insane.
Yeah, you just look at that number, okay, the touchdowns are coming down. Even the previous year was 4.9%. So yep, you'd be happy with that. Like you said, that's about his career average. Even if it's in between those numbers, that's the thing. Even you have to look at Mayfield's numbers from last year. You go, okay, he's not going to do that again. That doesn't mean he still can't have a good fantasy year. Maybe he has 32 to 33 touchdowns instead. He had 28 2 years ago, 41 last year. But it's the offense and the weapons around him. And he was still able to get it done when Godwin went out, Evans missed some games, McMillan took some time to adjust. Remember, the running game, too, was led by Rachaad White for a while. It took some time until Bucky Irving took over.
Yeah.
Second offensive coordinator in 2 seasons. Now it'll be 3 and 3. But I think we all believe that he'll have a very good year. The question is, are you willing to pay QB7? I think if you do rankings and projections, he's going to come out right around there. Maybe he comes out 8 or 9. But there's no way that you can't put him top 10 if you're doing projections. Doesn't mean you have to draft him in that range. But I expect another good year from Baker Mayfield. Like, what more do we need to see from him?
No, exactly. I mean, I understood a couple seasons ago where you're like, new offensive coordinator, things might get a little bit worse. But for me, Baker Mayfield has proven that he deserves to be in that top quarterback conversation for fantasy football. And so there's no reason that, and that's the other thing, like, we're going to say, okay, he's probably going to regress next season, but that's still, like, you just expect the passing touchdowns to come down, Adam, and he's still projected at Fantasy Life for 5.2%, 27.7 touchdowns. And that's 5.2% touchdown on his pass attempts. So that's still great. And I know that's lower than what he had last season, but it's still going to be good. You expect the passing yards to come down a little bit as well in the projections at fantasylife.com. But it's still, like you said, putting him, I believe I have him QB7. And again, these can all change, but I believe, it's QB7, QB8 is his consensus ranking at fantasylife.com. And that's where he should be.
Are you open to drafting him at that ADP?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, it just feels I am, because I just don't think that he is, again, even with the touchdown regression, he has just proven to us time and time again that he deserves to be in that conversation. And I think it was more impressive of him doing that with the injuries that they had last season. So you got Chris Godwin back on the 3-year extension. You've got Emeka Egbuka just in case one of those guys goes down, and Mike Evans is going to do Mike Evans things. Like, yeah, there's no reason for us to really doubt him at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. There might be some people who go, well, I'm paying for what he did last year and he can't repeat it. And even if like I said, even if he doesn't repeat it, I still think he could throw 32, 33 touchdowns. It's just a matter of, are you willing to pay that price for him? But again, it's the appropriate rank. It's sometimes though, you might go, you know what? I'll wait a little bit and get a cheaper quarterback that might be able to come close to the numbers that he puts up. But I guess also part of it is people probably are stacking him with those receivers.
Yeah.
In best ball, at least.
He's going in round 8 in underdog, but that's still QB7. So if you wanted to wait, though, I mean, then you're waiting and you get back into the range that we talked about earlier in the show. You're waiting for Kyler Murray, a Caleb Williams, a Bo Nix, or a Justin Fields. And then after that, I feel like there's a tier break, and Brock Purdy, who we talked about earlier. But after that, there's a tier break. And then you get into the Dak Prescotts, the Jared Goffs, the Herberts. So that's kind of what you wait for.
Well, you got to feel at least better about Dak Prescott with Pickens there.
You do. And we're going to talk about their schedule.
Yeah, their schedule.
It's not bad. You've got like 4 Thursday night games that you're going to be attending. What are you talking about?
First of all, no. So they made the Giants Cowboys in New York week 18. That actually works out well for me because it's not a big fantasy week. Well, it depends. What if there's a playoff berth on the line for Dallas?
Okay. You sound like me last year when I was like, the Seahawks are facing the Rams. I have to go because that's obviously going to be a huge game. Wrong, Adam. It wasn't. It sucked.
That's the risk.
So disappointing.
The game could mean nothing. It can be absolute crap, but it's better than week 12 on a Sunday at 1 or 4.
Okay, fair. So, because you can't miss all that.
Yeah, so I figured it was not going to be Thursday night or Monday night this time around, although Dallas does have a lot of primetime games.
They've got a lot.
And people were kind of not arguing with me, but some people's like, oh, they're a terrible team. Who wants to see them play? Here's the thing. They draw ratings. The NFL would not put them in that spot because, number one, you have a lot of Cowboys fans across the country, and then you have a lot of people who tune in to watch them lose because they hate Dallas. So they want to watch them lose.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll keep talking about, we've got a lot to talk about from that schedule release. I've got one more player that I want to mention for regression candidates that maybe people aren't thinking about. We're going to give you that name coming up next. Fantasy football is life. Appreciate you all listening right here to Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Going through some regression candidates. Again, this article live at fantasylife.com. What if I threw you the name T. Higgins as a regression candidate, Adam? Would you be on board? So here's the thing. Let's talk it out because he had his best fantasy season ever in 2024. He had 18.7, averaged 18.7 points, 3 better than his previous year's 15.7 in 2021. And honestly, when you look at it, Adam, like as a target earner, he's been able to get things done even with Jamar Chase on that team. So 2024, 24%, 2023, 18%, 22 was 18%, 21, 25%. So it's all been there. But I am curious when you see T. Higgins' name on a article that's talking about regression candidates for the season that he had last year. For where he's going, by the way, he's going as a top 13 wide receiver in drafts. So he's got 3 top 24 finishes in 5 years on a points per game basis. And that's the number, he including that number 3 rank in 2024. So we're not here saying that he's not valuable, but what do you think about his price right now? And do you think, maybe we see a little regression?
It could be. I mean, when you look at the numbers and you look at the targets, yeah, you'd be like, well, he can't repeat that again. A lot was based on the touchdowns.
Yeah.
The injuries are a factor with him, too. He's constantly banged up and misses time. He missed 5 games last year, 5 the year before. The factor, I guess, that you're going to say, well, look at that defense. They're terrible. They're going to just be they're going to have to put up 25, 30 points to stay in games every week. So that's the the other factor that you look at. But yeah, he's never had 1,100 yards. Last year was the first season that he had more than 7 touchdowns. And he's never even had 75 receptions in a season. No. So when you look at all that, you could go, oh, yeah, maybe he's being overpriced. But I think the market is saying, well, they're going to just be such a prolific offense. They're expecting the offense to pick up where they left off last year. Yep. And part of it is because the defense was so bad and we really didn't see much of an improvement, right?
No.
And we still have the
barely.
Trey Hendrickson situation.
Yep. 10 receiving touchdowns in 12 games. I forgot about that. And the thing with the injuries,
and he had a touchdown every 7.3 receptions.
Exactly. But the thing with the injuries last year that I kind of kept in the back of my mind was that he was going for the contract. So even if he felt a little discomfort, I think we talked about that where we're like, hey, he's going to err on the side of caution because he wanted to make sure that he got those numbers. But yeah, 10 receiving touchdowns in 12 games was, I mean, just crazy for him there. So we'll see if he's able to keep that up. Again, that article is live at fantasylife.com. Let's go, Adam, over to the water cooler. We got things to talk about there. Coming up next. You already know what time it is. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler, going through all the pieces of news that you might have missed here in the first hour and taking you through all the notes that we've been talking about here. But as always, fantasylife.com is your resource for all this great information. So make sure you head over there. All the articles 100% free. And signing up for that newsletter is still 100% free as well in your inbox 7 days a week. So Adam, we gotta, let's get talking about it. We got a lot of stuff to go through. Like, can we start with Caleb Williams one more time though? Because I know we just talked about him, but did you see all the stuff coming out about like his dad saying that they didn't want him getting drafted by the Chicago Bears? He said quote, "Chicago is the place quarterbacks go to die." He said, "I don't want my son playing for the Bears." And they even considered signing with the UFL and becoming an unrestricted NFL free agent in 2025 to be able to pick a team. That's crazy. But then again, Adam, it goes to the other side where Caleb Williams comes out and says, I wasn't getting help in the film room. Coaches weren't helping me. We talked all the time about, Shane Waldron, for everything that it's worth, horrible. So that was just crazy to see all those quotes coming out.
It really was. Now, you got to hope that this coaching staff, and that's what everyone's banking on. We talked about it in the first hour, how he's going as the QB8 in underdog, and people are banking on the whole environment, the whole situation, specifically with the coaches and the upgraded offensive line changing things. So, yeah, it was mind-boggling last year watching and seeing the lack of coaching and the way the offense was being run. Again, I think Caleb Williams was at fault on a lot of those sacks. Anytime the sack number is that high,
yes,
the quarterback is responsible for that. And there were times he had a clean pocket and he wasn't good. But look, we have seen quarterbacks in Chicago. We still are waiting for that first quarterback to throw for 4,000 passing yards. And we all thought last year, okay, it's probably going to be Caleb Williams. Look, if he doesn't do it this year, there are major problems, and fantasy teams are going to sink. So it better get done this year.
Hopefully. It's still crazy that stat is alive and well, that no Bears quarterback has thrown for 4,000 yards plus. So Caleb, maybe we were just a year too early with Caleb Williams, just like some of the other guys. It's just like we're just a year too early, but completed 62.5% of his passes, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and like we said, league leading 68 sacks as well, which, like you say, a lot of this is on him as well. So hopefully the development continues for Caleb Williams and we see him have a much better 2025 season. Let's go. I gotta ask you about the schedule. There's some things that we can talk through about the schedule release. I need to know though first, Adam, do you like the schedule release? Do you like all the videos that come out from the social media with the teams? Like, where are you on that? I'm gonna guess no, but you might surprise me.
No, I actually do like it. Now, I didn't get to. There's so many, so I didn't see all of them.
32.
I thought, yeah, but I didn't watch all 32 videos. I saw the other day the Ravens with Severance theme. Did you see that one?
7 minute. Yeah, that's why I tweeted. And look, this is no effect. You know me, I'm optimistic and I love fun. Adam, when teams are putting out a 7-minute long video, I did the Aaron Rodgers gif where it's just like, let's wrap it up. That's the production value, the money that they probably spent on that. That's insane.
But that shows you the appetite of fans in the NFL that they are excited for this. And I mean, how many did you watch fully then?
Fully probably 10.
Okay. What was the best one that you saw?
I loved the Bills one.
The Bills? I didn't even see it.
Oh, it was a good. Oh, what? That was a good one.
Look, I don't have time. You just mentioned
here we
there's
go.
7.
I don't have time.
You're okay. You're lucky because you mainly focus on football. I have actual baseball games going on and NBA games. So
but that's what I'm saying.
betting on these things.
Let's shorten these. The 7 minutes is like it's too. We've gone too far. I feel like, Adam, and again, no offense, because you guys all know I try to be optimistic. We've lost the plot here a little bit. 7 minutes for a video on the schedule release.
So I forgot. That's right. Your generation is the short attention span, right?
No, but like 7 minutes. What are we doing?
How many? You said 60 seconds?
No, I said give me a crisp 90 seconds.
90.
Okay.
You
know, a tight 2 minutes. You know,
and most of them are around 5 to 6 minutes, correct?
There was a good amount of them that were a little bit longer, but again, the production value is crazy insane. Like that is such a cool accomplishment for any social team.
For some
and
of
the
them.
ideas, like they're so creative, but it almost feels wasted on the schedule release. I'm like, we're doing all this. We already knew the teams. We just put weeks in front of them.
Right. I mean, for fantasy purposes, the weeks and the bye weeks are very important.
Very important.
So what was the Bills theme? Their video?
Yeah. So they, it opens up with what should we do for the schedule release? And they say we should use AI, but it was Allen Iverson. It was pretty funny. You should go and watch that one. It was a good one.
And what other ones stood out? Anything else? I didn't even see what Dallas did.
I didn't.
Did they even do anything? They seemed like they wouldn't even do anything.
I think they had to do something, right? Well, there was the one where the Colts had to delete theirs because
with the Tyreek Hill, right?
Yeah, which is so. I know.
But he said it. He thought it was funny. That's how sensitive people are. Like, especially if the guy. I thought it was
hilarious.
Especially if he says, "Yeah, I thought it was funny." Like, come on, let's have some fun. But
yeah, I thought some of them were great. And you should go. I know you don't have time, but you should go watch some of them. They were good.
Right, maybe in the 2 a.m. hour when I'm awake.
I was gonna say
not watching a show.
Scroll on your phone. The Minnesota Vikings was pretty crazy because they had super fans of the Minnesota Vikings, which we know how hard those fans go for their team. But they had them get tattoos that correlated with the week that, if they were playing the Bears or whatever in week, again, don't have it in front of me, but like a woman got a tattoo of a bear. It was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a cool one. Thor Nystrom wasn't in it, but that's okay.
Yeah, he should have been.
He should have been.
And I do see, though, we do have 4 teams on bye in week 14, so the NFL didn't listen to us.
They did listen to it. It's better than 6.
I know, in week 13
it's way better than 6. Yeah, week 13 there's none.
Is week 13 Thanksgiving week?
They never have. I shouldn't say never. Last year they did not have buys in week 13. Right. So that's always the one where
week 12, 4, week 11,
there's
2.
only one buy. There's only one like real buy-mageddon, and I believe it's week 8 where there's 6 teams.
Also,
but that's the only time that we have 6 teams on a buy.
All right, so they did a little bit better.
It seems much more manageable this year because last year you had important teams on a bye in week 14. You had very important teams on a bye in week 12. Not to say that the ones coming up, but now we only have 4. 4 is.
And if you look at some of those teams, they have low projected win totals. Giants, Patriots, Panthers. So the 49ers, we do expect to be better with health and the easier schedule. So at least from that aspect, it's a little bit better. I still wish they wouldn't have any week 14 buys. Again, there are some leagues that do use week 14 as the first week of the playoffs. I mean, even the Scott Fish Bowl, I think. Actually, it's earlier than week 14 for the Scott Fish Bowl, right? Isn't it like 11, 12 weeks of the regular season in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's pretty
And I know that's a different scenario, a different league. But again, I know FFPC has week 14 first week of the playoffs. So we got to get in the ear of the NFL and say, look, fantasy is an important force. It is, though. Like, you can't deny it. I mean, they finally, got all these stats at the bottom of the screen, and they even have a fantasy show. Like, it's still, we still need to get it more on TV, but, like, you cannot deny it. Like, everyone plays fantasy. So at least have some consideration. And week 14 is too late. as a
But it's
Cowboy fan,
always been like that.
I love Week 10 as a bye for the Cowboys, right in the middle of the season. It's perfect.
It's a good one. That's one that's gonna rock some people. Cowboys, Bengals, Titans, Chiefs, all in a bye in the same week. There's less. We've got less 6-team buys this year, so it's very much you have four or less. You have between 4 and 2 for these bye weeks, but some of them put together though, like the Eagles and Bucks are on the same bye in Week 9, Week
Don't
10,
leave
like
the
I
Jets
just said.
and Browns out of that. They're potent too.
Yeah, the Jets for Justin Fields, managers Garrett Wilson. But Week 10, like the Cowboys, Bengals, Titans, Chiefs. Sorry, Titans. Titans, by the way, have no primetime games in 2025. And I think that's kind of crazy for you've got Cam Ward, the number one overall pick.
At least give them a Thursday night. They play Jacksonville every year on a Thursday, and now they don't.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. So we don't see him in primetime unless they do well and maybe they get flexed in. But the New Orleans Saints are the other team that don't have.
I was just going to say they were the other team, right?
And there's one more.
There is?
Giants? Yeah, there's 3 teams.
Giants don't have a primetime game?
No, that's a lie. Don't listen to me. There's 3 teams with no bye. Or with no bye. There's 3 teams with no primetime games.
That would be a problem.
That would be crazy.
I know the Saints, you are right on that. And you said
I'm
the Titans.
pulling it up.
Is it the Browns? No.
Oh, it's got to be the Browns. Yeah. They can't have the Browns on there. It is the Browns.
Didn't they used to always give everyone at least one Thursday night game?
Well, and then they look at them and they say, "Oh, we can't do this to the people." It's Cleveland, Tennessee, New Orleans. Yeah.
I don't think anyone would be upset at that though.
No.
Based on their projection, now maybe one of them surprises, but I don't think you're going to be like, "Oh my goodness, we don't get to see those teams." Don't the Chiefs have a primetime game every week?
The Chiefs have 7. They lead the league this year. Don't roll your eyes because Dallas has 6.
I mean, look.
What are we doing?
I can't blame the NFL for doing that. It's Mahomes. It's No, for real though.
It's true. They have 7.
You could hate it all you want, and they usually have competitive games, and they're still one of the top teams. And remember, though, those could also change because of flexing late in the year.
Get flexed out.
Yeah. So, no, they could get flexed in where they have more.
Oh, don't do this to the people listening. They're gonna be like, Adam, please don't do that. But because they have the big Christmas. They're on Christmas again, I believe.
I don't like that.
Why?
I mean, because that's the NBA's day. Come on.
Here we go.
It is
Prime Video against Denver. Week 17.
Kansas City, Denver on Christmas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not bad.
What was the other Christmas? There's 2 Christmas games, right?
Oh my gosh, you're asking me things that I don't have my notes up for. Christmas games, I'm gonna look. But yes, there are 2. It's
Cowboys, Commanders.
Oh, that could be good. Or you could have a really bad day.
So there's 3 games that day?
Yeah.
Lions, Vikings, Cowboys, Commanders, Broncos, Chiefs.
Yeah, they're trying to take over Christmas.
Oh, boy. I know they are.
And it's probably going to work.
First of all, it's Christmas. Thursday, I get Thursday's day you play. Just have one game.
No, because they need to make money.
You have the weekend. Don't they have Saturday games that week?
Yeah, that's the one where goes.
Okay, are you is that Christmas big for you? Do you like having 3 games at Christmas, or would you rather have one to
Adam. We
chill
just
with family?
No, we have to work. If we're gonna work, if we're already gonna work one game, you might as well put 2 more on there because it's just sorry, mom and dad. They already know at this point what Christmas looks like. It's a laptop on the dining room table.
Yeah, well, me it'll be TV for NFL and NBA on the laptop.
I like the Christmas games. Now where it gets crazy is that you've got the one Black Friday game, and then you're right, we go into Saturday games, and then we have full slate Sunday.
I don't mind the Saturday games. More NFL I like the isolated games,
Strength of schedule. New York Giants. Gotta send a prayer to the Giants. That's
such a shame. I feel so bad.
I know. I'm sure you do.
But it's a divisional thing because Eagles and Cowboys are up there too because they're playing the AFC West. So the AFC West.
Yeah,
all those teams are pretty good.
It is a divisional thing, but I mean, it's they go 3-14. So this is my takeaway from the Giants. So the Giants have the toughest strength of schedule. My takeaway is that because of that, we see Jackson Dart way sooner rather than later. That whole coaching staff is on the hot. Brian Dable's on the hot seat before even training camp starts. And so if Russell Wilson isn't getting this team wins immediately, they're gonna try everything that they can, and that becomes Jackson Dart as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, because again, there's jobs on the line here.
Yeah.
So if you can't draft Dart and then be like, well, we never got to see him play and we lost our job. Like, doesn't make sense. So, like you mentioned, the schedule is tough, and I mean, you could see a scenario where they start 0-4, 0-5. I mean, they get the Saints on the road. You would think that's a winnable game, October 5th. But you know what really hurt them, though, is the 49ers being a last-place team. Because now you got to play the 49ers, and that's a team that just had everything go wrong for them last year. And I think almost everyone believes they'll be better. So they have them on the schedule. You know, you get Packers, the Bears, the Vikings, they play the whole NFC North. That's a tough division. Tough. And the AFC West. So, I mean, that's why I think you see, though, the NFC East teams, I know the Eagles and the Cowboys, I believe, are top 10, too, in tough schedule, correct?
Yep.
And where's Washington? Do you have it in front of you?
No, I don't. Let me look it up.
They probably are up there, too.
They're up there. They have a tough schedule as well.
They have the second place schedule. So
yeah, exactly.
But we all know, like, some of these teams that we expect to be good won't be, and some of these teams that are bad, maybe a couple are better. So because no one thought Minnesota was going to be as good as they were last year. I mean, maybe 500, but as good as they were, no.
Yeah, so it's just send a prayer for the Giants, because
I will never do that.
Oh, stop!
I'll never do that.
Philadelphia
Good for them. They deserve it.
Philadelphia has a tough schedule. We kind of already knew that because we knew that they were going to do that. Cowboys have a tough schedule. It looks like they're fifth toughest schedule, and then the Commanders are seventh toughest schedule for the Commanders. The Lions, can we talk about the Lions? That's a tough schedule, and that's one of those things where you and I have been pretty, like, we've gone back and forth on Jared Goff and how he's ranked very high this year going into the season. And I have said before, and this can change, we've got months to go, but Jared Goff seems like he's being, like, if you're taking him there, you're drafting him at his ceiling. And now you look at the Lions and they have a really, really tough schedule. So not only, the 6 games against the Packers, Vikings, Bears, overall, they played 12 games against teams that finished with a winning record in 2024, which is the most in the NFL, and then they face all 4 teams from the NFC East, AFC North, and special matchups against Tampa Bay, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Rams. It's tough.
I know you don't know this answer offhand, but how many games do they play outdoors?
8. I do.
I just,
do you see
good
me?
job. Good job.
Yeah,
I had it myself. I didn't think you would have it.
I've got that, but when you're asking me, 8 games outdoors, right?
That's always the key, because we've seen, and I think he had a couple good games last year, but you have the change in offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. You'd hope that it'd be similar with the personnel that they have. You saw that at work, but I think there's some questions. But this is a tough schedule. I mean, the division, Packers and Bears to open up, then at Baltimore, back-to-back weeks at Cincinnati, at Kansas City. We love that, though. We want shootouts. Give us 40-35 in those games.
Yeah, it's just, and listen, he's consensus QB 12, and I kept him out of my top 12 in my initial rankings. I understand it too. It's a great offense, and if you want to go and get Jared Goff, go ahead. But it really does, Adam, right now, I feel like you're drafting him at his ceiling, and because and again, that can change for me. I can look through everything, look through Dwayne's projections, and try and talk myself into it. But I feel like for me in my rankings, I'm closer to 13, 14, 15 than I am QB 12.
Yeah, me too. Because he had a stretch last year to close the year where he had 4 straight games of at least 3 touchdowns and a 5-touchdown game. Montgomery, I think, was out for some of those games as well. So that they want to run the football. They brought Montgomery back, signed him. So it's still going to be that Gibbs-Montgomery tandem. So that's the issue with Goff, is there's going to be just some weeks where they're running the football so well that Goff just doesn't put up big numbers. So, you mentioned, the touchdown percentage, we talked about it with Baker Mayfield, right? So Goff was 6.9% last year. He was 5% the year before, 4.9% the year before, and his career mark is, 4.8%. So that's probably to come down to. So here's the thing with Goff, right? So we mentioned that number. He had 37 touchdowns. If we bring him down to 30 touchdowns, that's basically the previous years. So that's not a difference-making quarterback. He's not going to run. So he's fine on the weeks that you are able to start him throwing 3-4 touchdowns. But, I think he's too high. I would rather take a different quarterback.
Yeah, it's just because he's at 12. I'm like, ooh, and some of them are being pushed, Jared Goff right into the top 10, and we talked about that right when the show started, Adam. It's just like I can't get behind that yet. And maybe again, like I said, we're so early that things can change, but even in the projections that we have him for, it's all right there. Like it just feels a little bit too high right now. But like I said, anything can change, so we can figure that out in the weeks to come. Last one here. How many of these Thursday night Cowboy games are you going to go to? Because they have the most. Yeah.
Like,
why not? It's Thursday.
Yeah, but it's where are they? I'm pretty sure we have to work on Friday, right?
Oh, that's right. So here I am thinking about you. I'm like, oh, look at that. They have the first team in NFL history with 4 Thursday games in a single season.
Well, I guess they always get Thanksgiving, so that's a given.
Yes, that's a Thursday.
And then usually they always play the following Thursday after Thanksgiving as well. You get them a week. Then they have the opener.
Christmas.
Well, that's why. Christmas is a Thursday, and then they open at Philly. So that's why. It was just one of those things. I'm kind of surprised that they put them at Philly as the opener, right?
I was shocked to see that, to be honest. But, the George Pickens trade makes it better.
Yeah, but they probably had that penciled in before that, I would think.
They did, but, you're excited. Now you're like, okay, well, at least George, I was surprised that was the one for the Thursday opener.
Me too. It is a division rival. The teams hate each other, but you would think that maybe it would have been a Detroit or a team that did better. I guess they are banking on Dallas being better. And again, they draw ratings. You can say they stink, whatever you want. People love to, again, they either love to watch them or they just tune in to see them lose. So
week one's kind of gross. Not to be looking way ahead, but week one's kind of gross.
As far as the schedule?
Just games. Like Cincinnati against Cleveland, Tampa Bay against Atlanta, Arizona against New Orleans. You've got the revenge game maybe for Pittsburgh, New York.
The Sunday night game is as good as it gets. Baltimore and Buffalo.
But I'm talking week one. Like,
I don't like having Baltimore Buffalo week one. Give me that later in the year.
Stop.
No, team might. It's just later in the year. It's better.
Good.
Give me that in week 14.
Well, but then we have Bills Chiefs. That's late. November. So that's a good one. And then
Minnesota Chicago, the first Monday night game. That's a good one.
That's a good one. I'm just here to say, people. Week one, you got some, Tennessee going up against Denver, Carolina, Jacksonville. Yuck.
Well,
New York against Washington.
Jets versus Pittsburgh. I wonder if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there.
That's what they're waiting for. We'll see. All right. Everything that you need to know about the schedule, though, is live at fantasylife.com. If you want to know about those bye weeks, I wrote an article over there that you can check out as well. Kind of goes through each team, what you need to look for, pieces of advice, all of that good stuff over there at fantasylife.com. We're going to continue on. We've been mentioning these quarterback rankings, Adam. Let's go through our quarterback rankings at fantasylife.com. See where you and I have some of these guys as well. We're going to do that coming up next. Talking through quarterback rankings, way too early quarterback rankings, we know, but they're live on the website, fantasylife.com. Got my article out, Adam. Got the first look at the rankings going into 2025. First 5 are pretty chalk. I will say that. I did not go, I didn't put Kyler Murray in there. I got some tweets about that. Like, where's Kyler? He's not in the top 5, guys. I'm not gonna be that sick about it. But for me, I do have Lamar QB1 overall. But I know people are going to switch them in and out between Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels coming in at QB3, Jalen Hurts 4, and then Joe Burrow at 5. We're not going to mess around with the Joe Burrow. For all things last year was he was also way too cheap in drafts, and if you were able to get him, way outperformed his ADP, gave you a great season. But we're not going to mess around with that again this year. So he's my QB5 as well. So it's pretty chalk at the top.
Yeah, we're seeing basically that's going to be everyone's top 5. And the order will vary depending on what your preference is. Yeah, I think Burrow, what happened last year is he was coming off that wrist injury. And I think there was some question if it would impact him in any way. And it clearly didn't, because there were some drafts he went 8, 9, 10 quarterback off the board. And I think we were waiting for that Burrow season for a while. We knew it was there. And, 43 touchdowns is a career high. He had 35 in 2022. So his touchdown percentage was 6.6%. His career mark's 5.5. Even if it comes down, he's still going to get you 35, 36 touchdowns. It's really difficult not to see that happening again. 652 pass attempts last year. So as long as he's healthy, he's going to have at least 600 pass attempts. Again, the defense doesn't look like it's improved, so they're going to have a lot of shootouts. So, yeah, you're feeling pretty good about Burrow. One of the few quarterbacks that doesn't run as much as some of the other guys there that you feel like, hey, yeah, it doesn't matter because he's going to put up those numbers.
It was his wrist injury, and Jamar Chase had some contract stuff, right? Like he did a hold in, like he showed up because I think in his contract he needed to show up for, I don't think it was training camp, but it was something else. But
it was very late.
Yeah, there were questions on that where I think that also drove his price and made him a little bit. And then of course the T Higgins, like we didn't know the contract stuff with T Higgins, if they were going to get a deal done or if, whatever was going to happen with him. So Jamar Chase in his situation, that hold-in situation, I think drove his price a little bit there too. But listen, I agree. It's Joe Burrow, and then when we talk about tiers, you then after that you get into the I've got Patrick Mahomes 6. QB 6, and that's in line with our consensus as well with all of our rankings. Put them all together. Patrick Mahomes is 6. Baker Mayfield 7. Oh, I have Kyler Murray 8. Adam, I can't get away from it. And I know, again, these are going to change. These are not locked in. We've got months and months to go. But Adam, I don't know if you're telling me we look at the schedule and you're telling me that the Cardinals have the easiest fantasy schedule according to ESPN. I might be insufferable. It might be tough.
Well, at least you're not like most people when you invest in a player and they burn you that you just say, nope, not doing it again.
Maybe I should
No,
learn.
but you really do have to have an open mind. And I guess some of the comments, I think we talked about this like a few weeks ago where Murray was saying, yeah, I just never felt healthy. And there were times that I didn't want to run because you could see it in games. I was watching games and I would see Murray like bootleg to his right. I'm like, oh, he's got this space to run. And he wouldn't run. And I'm like, what? Like, this is not like him. So we know he's never going to be a 30 touchdown guy. You need 25 from him, And I think, wasn't it outside of last year, he's been a QB1 every year?
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah, he put up
and even last year was
every
close.
Year. Yes.
Yeah, because of his rushing. So we didn't get what we were expecting last year. But if he is healthy and he's going to run like that again, it's massive. Because we saw 78 attempts on the ground. That's really low. I mean, he had 88 in 14 games in 2024. He had 133 in 2020. He had 93 in 2019. So, he still gave you 572 rush yards and 5 touchdowns, which isn't bad. But I think you want to see him run a little bit more. So if that comes back, he improves a little bit as a passer. I mean, you could see it. For sure. And it goes to what we say. And that's part of the reason why we were high on him last year. It's like, well, you have a quarterback that's going to run going, QB9, QB10. Yeah, definitely interested in that one. So, and you might be able to get him a little cheaper this year in some drafts. I think you said an underdog, he was like QB, what was it, 10, 11, or is it a little higher? So, yeah, I mean, Murray last year was certainly a quarterback that we expected better, but the injuries were a factor. The offense wasn't good. We saw last year that there was just a disconnect with him and Marvin Harrison Jr. So if that can come back, that will certainly help. And I do think it could get better. A lot's going to come down to the price. And I'm probably going to be open to taking him once again, as long as it's a decent price. And so right around QB12 is where I have them. Again, these running quarterbacks, you want a piece of them. Justin Fields is another guy, too, where you just look at what he's done in his career, and I think he's averaged about 50 rushing yards per game. So he doesn't need to do much in the passing game. He does have that number one in Garrett Wilson, and we saw DJ Moore put up one of his best seasons with Justin Fields as quarterback. So you're looking for those quarterbacks that help on the ground. It kind of offsets what they do through the air, and that's what we saw last year. Kyler Murray, in a league with 6 points for a passing touchdown, he was 15th in points per game. That, to me, still is a disappointment, though, because you expected better from him. And a lot of it came down to just not running enough. Because if you're going to be that quarterback that's going to throw 225, 250, maybe one 2 touchdowns. We need to get those rushing yards. And I guess that's also the problem with relying on some of those running quarterbacks if they're not prolific in the passing game. If those passing numbers aren't there and then for some reason they don't run due to injury, like we saw with Kyler Murray last year, then, it could be a disappointing year. So I wish the price was a little bit cheaper, because usually what happens when you get a quarterback like Kyler Murray who has that type of year, that they go cheaper. But that's not what happened with Kyler Murray last year. I mean, they did run pretty well too with James Conner. He had a pretty good year, but just want to see more running from Kyler Murray. And we see this in every sport. We sit there and we go, why didn't this guy do this? Why didn't this guy do that? And then they make comments after the year. Well, I was dealing with an injury. I was coming off the ACL from the year before, and I wasn't confident in my ability. And that's what we heard from Murray. So you just got to hope now, full year removed from it, that he's more confident and takes off and runs, because we really need that in fantasy. And that was really the big problem last year. You just look at the rushing attempts, and that was the issue last year. But when we return, we'll talk more. It is the Fantasy Live Show here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio.
All right, fantasy football fans. Sure, the NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. All right, Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Adam, I don't know if I should take it as a sign. Maybe I've got Kyler Murray too high. Maybe I need to reevaluate, because the internet goes down. It's like, what is she? We've got to send her a sign. Kyler Murray QB8 can't be happening right now. So maybe that was my sign. I'm back. We're good.
Yeah, they heard you saying that. They said, well, she made that mistake last year. Can't do it again. So we're just going to have to cut her off right now. No, cannot do that.
What are we doing? So I'm taking it as a sign. Maybe I have him a little bit too high in the rankings, but let me keep going here for 1 second, because I need to ask you, someone that I've had trouble with in these rankings is Bo Nix. And I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, Adam. Maybe I'm missing some bigger picture here, because I really am excited for the Denver Broncos, but consensus, he's QB8 right now at Fantasy Life. And while I do believe that he can continue getting better and continue improving, he had a QB10 finish last season. That's phenomenal. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's because they didn't necessarily go out and get a bigger wide receiver like I thought they would to pair with Cortland Sutton. I love RJ Harvey, so we know that the running game, the ground game, is going to be 100 times better. And Bo Nix showed dual threat ability. I mean, he had 430 rushing yards, which was the third leading rusher for the Denver Broncos. He had 4 touchdowns on the ground as well. And we saw Nix develop week in and week out. It didn't start great, but then towards the end of the season, we saw them stringing everything together. So I don't know what it is, but I still have him. That's all this to say. I still have him QB9, but I could see him maybe falling back for me into more QB10 territory. But they have Evan Ingram now. They have RJ Harvey, and maybe it's just a me thing where I'm having a tough time putting him anywhere higher than QB9 right now.
It also could be because we often see these rookie quarterbacks that come into the NFL and have success in year one. A lot of times they struggle in year two. We saw last year with CJ Stroud. Now, the price for Nix isn't what it was for Stroud last year. He was often going as the 5th quarterback off the board because people say, well, he did this in his rookie year, so he'll be even better in year two. And it doesn't always work like that. So maybe that's the slight hesitation you have, where you think like, okay, there's more film on him now. Defenses will make adjustments. It is a pretty tough division there. He was so good though last year. I mean, I had him on a team. I think I picked him up off the waiver wire, and he actually became my QB1 because I had Dak Prescott. He got hurt. I can't even remember who the backup was, and fortunately, I picked up Nix at the right time, and I said, okay, he's just my quarterback down the stretch. So he was that good as that element 2 on the ground. I mean, 430 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a nice bonus. So, yeah, he just seemed, as the season went along, he felt more comfortable. He looked really good out there, wasn't turning the ball over. So Yeah, I think he's, right around QB 10, QB 11.
Are you in on him on that price? QB 8?
8 seems a little high. See, yeah, I have to figure out what I'm going to do when I don't land one of those elite quarterbacks, like who is going to be the target. And I think you're illustrating it now, too, when you're going over some of people's different rankings. Everyone has a different. So you can't really go based on the ADP because someone might have Caleb Williams higher or lower. Same thing with a Bo Nix, a Purdy. You mentioned Goff. So you're going to have to just come out with your rankings and stick with it and go with those guys, because I do think this is a range probably from like 8 to 14. I think everyone's going to have a different. It feels like the top 7 are pretty much the same. And then that's where you start to see a deviation where someone might have Williams 8, someone might have Purdy 8, Murray, Nix. So that's where you have to kind of figure out who your guy is and not really worry about ADP. Just go get them when that tier of quarterback starts to go off the board.
I have, to finish off the rankings, I did squeeze Justin Fields for now into the top 12, and I know that's gonna scare some people because it scared me.
Why
Adam.
does it scare you, though?
It scared me putting him in there. Just because the idea with Justin Fields is that he has the rushing ability to give us so much upside for fantasy football, and then it's the other side is that he just has to keep this job, which I believe he can do. Like I am following the money with Justin Fields, and I'm saying, look, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder like last year when it came to Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson being hurt, and then all of a sudden we only got 6 games out of Justin Fields, 6 good games, by the way, with him and the Steelers. So I think people might be done with the Justin Fields experiment, and that's why they say I'm not taking Fields at 12. I think it's too risky. I don't want to play that game anymore with him. But I don't know, Adam. For me, I think QB 12 is pretty fair because he feels like the guy that you and I talk about where we say we have to find the late round gems. The Jaden, now he's not going to be Jaden Daniels, but just like last season when we did it with Jaden Daniels, who's going to give us the upside that we want, where we say let's wait and get this guy late. And for me right now, it's Justin Fields. I'll wait in drafts, and if I don't get, like you said, those top 5 quarterbacks, and we get into the range of, Patrick Mahomes is there and Caleb Williams is there, I'll wait for Justin Fields, and I'm down with it.
I am too, because I think the most important point is what you hit. Does he keep the job the entire year? My guess is yes. If he does, then he is shown when he is a starter on the field, he's a QB1. He's 6th in fantasy points per start over the last 3 seasons. So he's averaging 50.2 rushing yards per game in his career. So if we just get him to start every game, and it's not going to look good, there's going to be sacks, there's going to be plays that have you scratch your head, but it's that rushing ability. And, we saw it last year. Pittsburgh's probably not the best example because they were not going to pass much at all. And maybe the Jets are similar. I think they'll let him pass a little bit more. He does have Garrett Wilson. We talked about how DJ Moore had one of his best seasons with Fields as quarterback. And it's just what he's going to do on the ground. And if you're going to give, 50 plus rushing yards per game and, he gets a rushing touchdown, you don't need much in the passing game. And we've seen it before.
Exactly.
So I think people are probably scared just because of what they see on the field.
Yeah.
But I don't see how he doesn't keep this job.
I don't either. And for everything that it's worth with Justin Fields as well, he joins Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels as the only quarterbacks in NFL history to average at least 50 rush yards per game. So again, we saw good things from him last year from the Steelers. It wasn't 6 bad games, because then I feel like that would be baked into the price right now with him. It was 6 games. He averaged 18.9 fantasy points per game during those 6 starts. And we just know he's got the legs to give us what we want in fantasy. And that, again, you're going to hear it all offseason from us, is the rushing upside with Fields. And yes, he can get better as a passer, but what he gives us on the ground is so important to pay attention to. So I agree with you. Like, I don't think that he is going to lose this job. Now, if it's just really bad, okay, sure. But I'm just going to be drafting that way, where it's just cute. He's in my top 12 right now. And I think that's pretty in line with To be honest, I haven't seen him that far off from QB 12 in other rankings. Like I've seen him at QB 13, 14, but that's probably the worst that I've seen.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested at the price because of what he can do on the ground. I mean, I was interested last year more of as a QB2 and see how it goes, but the last 3 years he's QB7 in points per game.
Yeah.
Again, there's a difference between reality and fantasy. I see why a lot of people don't want him as their starting quarterback in the NFL if you're trying to win games. Maybe it's unfair because some of the situations he's been in, with Chicago, he's probably watching Caleb Williams now going, wait, why didn't you do any of that for me? And obviously the Jets, not the ideal situation, but he's got a top-notch receiver. They have a good running game. We expect it to bounce back, and he's going to run. And as long as he's going to run, he's going to produce for fantasy. You might not want to watch it every play because it might frustrate you, but he's proven it. I mean, this is not 1 year he did it. Every time he's a starter, he puts up fantasy numbers where he's a QB1. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, you'd rather have the elite guys, but if you're going to wait, yeah, I'm fine with Fields as my starting quarterback.
Adam's like, draft him and then turn your television off. And draft him and don't look. Just close your eyes and cross your fingers and hope for the best. That's what we're going to do with Justin Fields this year. All right, continuing on, I do want to talk through some of the rookie wide receiver workloads and what we can expect. We've got floor ceiling projections from Dwayne McFarland, and some of these are really interesting with the guys we're looking at. So let's go through some of those rookie wide receivers coming up next. All right, Adam, let's go through some of these floor ceiling projections for these wide receivers. Let's see who we're willing to take a chance. I think the craziest one, though, here has to be Travis Hunter. And I know we've been talking about him a little bit and what people are going to do. And again, it's early. I think I'm going to really wait to figure out what to do with Travis Hunter. I've been drafting him just a little bit in best ball, but that is a lot different than taking him in redraft. It's a lot less risk, when in the grand scheme of things where you don't have to figure out when to start him, when to sit him, all that stuff. But the floor projection from Dwayne McFarland, 9.4 fantasy points per game. The ceiling projection, though, is 18.4 fantasy points per game. Like, give us the ceiling every single time here, Adam, with Travis Hunter and the Jaguars. Median projection comes out to 12.2 fantasy points per game. But even with uncertainty, he's got him at a 24% targets per route run rate. Say that 5 times fast, which is a 19% target share. So you still have Brian Thomas Jr. there. There are still questions on what kind of Trevor Lawrence that we're going to get heading into 2025. But it is fun to see the different range of outcomes because he's, going right now in early drafts as wide receiver 23. But his ceiling, I mean, if he can get there, you're going to be so happy with that price.
For sure. You mentioned the 18 points per game. 2 receivers last year had 18. 18.61 per game in PPR for Puka Nacua. 18.21 for Malik Neighbors. So, wow. Yeah, if Travis Hunter got to that level, I think we'd be pretty satisfied. And that's probably why you're seeing people take him 20, 21, 22 in that range because they're saying, hey, if this pops, it's going to be really good. And yeah, he is definitely challenging because we're trying to figure out how much is he going to be on the field. It feels like he's going to play a lot of wide receiver. And the question is, how much does he play on the defensive side? So yeah, I think he is a guy that you could see his ADP fluctuate based on reports, based on training camp. So he definitely is going to be a key of those receivers to figure out whether you want to buy in or not.
Yeah, he's one of the big questions for the year. Like I said, and he's stayed pretty steady actually at wide receiver 23. Travis Hunter has, so that's really
that's mostly
underdog.
Best ball though, right?
Yeah, that's underdog. So
yeah, I could see it changing for redraft.
Like him going higher.
Well, or like going higher, going lower based on reports. I think that he's a guy that can fluctuate.
It puts him around the range of Tedero McMillan, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy. Those are Xavier Worthy, Tedero McMillan, Travis Hunter, DJ Moore. That's the list of where you're at right
I think Worthy, a lot's going to depend on Rashee Rice, right? Mm-hmm. His health, and because I think those guys Rice, I believe, is higher in ADP in underdog, right?
Yeah. Rashee Rice is going wide receiver 18.
Yeah, I mean, look, Worthy stepped in. It took him some time. If you remember, Worthy was not really someone you could count on fantasy at all. And there might have been people who cut him. And then all of a sudden, as the year went on, he just got better. I mean, it's a thing with rookie receivers, right? I mean, there was a game last year against Tampa where Worthy had no receptions, no yards, and then 1 for 11. And I'm sure people gave up on him. Right at that point is when he started to get going, and he got a lot more involved in the offense, and even got some carries as well. So I would think if Rice is healthy, to me, he's the top guy there.
I would agree with that. But it's going to be a lot. It's going to be people having questions. Like you said, that range is where it's going to get interesting. I'm curious too. And this is something that I'm going to think about all offseason. If we're high on Brian Thomas Jr., if we're high on Travis Hunter, should we be a little bit higher on Trevor Lawrence going into the year? But right now he's QB, our consensus rankings QB 18.
Yeah, I would take him as a QB too. Like we talked about that range of quarterbacks. Now, again, for me, it depends on how many roster spots. 16 roster spots, I'm only taking one QB. 18 to 20, I might take a second. I would absolutely take a shot on Lawrence. So one of those other guys we mentioned doesn't work out, Lawrence could be the guy that pops.
Yep, fantasylife.com for all of those rankings again and all of the articles that we talked about throughout this show. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here today. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis, make sure you're giving us a follow at KValenzuela17, at Adam Ronis over there on X, on Twitter. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you here next time.